Okay, so we serve really 4 different sets of customers. We have the consumer customer, which of course we serve through Travelocity.com, our consumer brand. We also provide technology to a whole host of travel agencies, so American Express. We also provide technology to Expedia, which is a competitor of Travelocity, to Priceline, another competitor of Travelocity, to Kayak, which I don't view as much as a competitor, as really kind of adjacent to Travelocity. So we provide a lot of technology to the travel industry from a travel, I guess I'd call it a travel agency and consumer perspective, but also to corporate travel agencies like American Express. And then we have another business where we sell technology into airlines. So if you go to if you use Southwest Airlines reservation systems, it's our technology that's powering that. If you go to American Airlines, if you go to JetBlue, if you go to about 300 airlines, we provide technology to them for their reservations and in many cases for their websites. And we provide them with all manner of technology to run their airlines. So pricing and yield management, if you're frustrated with the fact that prices change on airlines on a regular basis, well, we built the technology that allows them to price all those seats in a different way. And it can be, I'm sure, frustrating for the consumers. We just provide them with the technology. They pull all the levers on that stuff. And then another business that we're in is selling very similar types of technology to what we sell to airlines, but to hotels. And so we sell into the hoteliers and provide them with reservations technology as well. And let's see, and that pretty well rounds out the businesses that we're in. We touch about 1 billion travelers a year through our technology. So you may touch our technology when you're in an airport kiosk. You may touch it when you book a flight or when you're checking fares online, or maybe when you're at a hotel checking in. So we have a lot of interactions with consumers on an annual basis, but about 1 billion consumers each year. And then I think the second part of your question was, I guess, how I got here, how I got to this job. I did, as Mark said, I started out in electrical engineering. When I got to American Airlines, which owned Sabre at the time, we're now Sabre of American Airlines. I started as a developer there, writing code, and wrote code for a couple years, and then I moved into management in various different capacities. Went into sales, and at the time, Bob Crandall, who you may not be familiar with, he's kind of a legend in the airline industry, and retired probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. He was of the school that when people go to work at his company, he wanted to move them around a lot and throw them into a lot of different roles, and sink or swim. If you did well, you stayed. If you did poorly, you left the company. And so I got to move around all over the company. And so while I've been there for 25 years, as Mark said, I was in a lot of different roles for the first, 16 years or so. Then I moved into the Travelocity CEO job after that 15 or 16 years. And then I've been in this job as CEO of Sabre for almost 9.5 years. So I've been in this job for a very long time. But up until that point, I got to do everything at that company. Sales, development, marketing, you name it. So it's been a really great experience, and it doesn't feel like 25 years, obviously. And it also feels like I've been in probably 10 or 12 different jobs over that period of time.
Okay. Well, there's not a lot of guys who ascend from the electrical engineering roles to marketing. And I know that you have had a lot of marketing assignments. I want to get a little bit to advertising behind Travelocity, the brand that we know best, right? Because your business-to-business services for airlines and hotels obviously is stuff behind the scenes that we don't see so much. So talk a little bit about Travelocity, where it is in the market, and your involvement with launching that whole business.
So the business was launched really back in '95, I guess, so probably before most of y'all were born. And so it's been around for well, maybe not all of you, maybe, I guess, 95.
Most of
you would have been born by then, I guess. So we launched in about 1995. It was the early years of the internet, and a lot of companies went by the wayside during that period of time. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the bubble of 2000 and 2001, when a lot of internet companies came and went. And our business model was, to start with, just selling airline tickets, and it evolved over a period of time to sell really all manner of travel, so car, hotel, package deals, so you can buy air and hotel together, as I'm sure you're familiar. You can buy those things together in a package, but it evolved over a period of time. I would say that, and we compete with Expedia and with Orbitz and Priceline and a number of others in the market. I would say it's got to be a very tough business because all of you know, as you shop for airfares or hotels or whatever it may be, I'm sure you're a very price-sensitive crowd. Everybody that's out looking for hotels and airline tickets are price-sensitive. So we're very focused on having our costs as low as possible so we can offer the best deals we can. But I would say that the business over a period of time has gotten pretty commoditized, and it's really, really competitive. So the business is going well, although again, I would say it's in the whole scheme of things, it's a lower margin business than we'd like it to be. But you know, we make pretty good money at it. And I think the best thing about being in the consumer travel business is we just have this opportunity to serve up great travel experiences to our customers. And there's a lot of it. For me anyway, I've been in the travel business for a long time. It's really rewarding to be in a business where you can serve up memories, you can serve up really kind of this evocative, emotive set of experiences that many of you have had as you've taken advantage of Travelocity or Expedia or other brands.
I'm curious, who uses Travelocity? You? Expedia. Expedia, about the same? Who uses Kayak?
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to ask that question particularly because, you know, you were mentioning about, you said, well, we compete against Orbitz, we compete against Priceline. Kayak's not really a competitor because I know they list your stuff too.
Yeah.
So, how do you stop people from using shop engines like a Kayak? How do you build that brand in such a commoditized business where everybody's really, for the most part, mostly looking for the best price? And I know there's some service set-asides that make you different, but how do you build a brand in a commoditized space, particularly when there's also people like Kayak that are doing searching on the front end for customers?
Well, yeah, and the reason that Kayak really is more on the front end. So they're serving up customers to us. We buy advertising from Kayak, and they will deliver customers to us. So and that's why I would say they're not really a competitor. And in fact, the Kayak Air engine behind the scenes is Travelocity. So we like it when you're using Kayak. So we feel good about that. And the same thing goes for an Expedia. Now, building a brand, we started a long time ago building the Travelocity brand. It's gone through iterations over a period of time. And I'll show you examples of this. I'll show you a bunch of our advertisements here in a minute. But back in 2003, we really were. My view was we didn't have a very strong message, a consistent message. We needed to really focus in on how we were branding the business and the messages that we were sending. And at the time, we were all over the place. And it is really, really important, in my view. And you'll hear from more of an expert in your next class on these types of things. But it's really important, in my view, to be very consistent with your message over a long period of time. And the roaming gnome, which we brought into the market in still working. We brought it into the market in the 2003-2004 timeframe, which stuck with for about 10 years. And you'll see how the messages have changed a little bit over that period of time. Although the most recent CEO of Travelocity has been really focused on bringing back what the gnome has really stood for over particularly in the early years. Which is really service and service differentiation, which unfortunately, because you asked me that now, I won't be able to really ask that question.
Okay, I jumped ahead
a little later, but I was going to give away this Elvis gnome to whoever answered that question best, but I guess I won't give it away now.
Well, I've got one of them, so they don't need it.
Yeah, Mark one of those. You've already got one, Mark.
I know, one of those.
I stole
it from the class last semester.
No, he didn't steal it. He just it was one of several. several. We've stuck with this now, and I'll tell you why as I dig a little deeper over here into the presentation. Why we've stuck with it, why we chose it to begin with. I'll ask a different question.
Okay,
that'll be the basis. That'll be the basis, maybe, for the best answer gets the eldest known.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I got a question before you jump into it, just off the cuff. Why would I want to use Travelocity instead of pick a competitor? Orbitz. Why would I want to use you instead of Expedia? What do you think makes you better? Or is that a question that comes from your presentation too?
Well, no, it's the answer I provided here very briefly a moment ago, which is service differentiation. So what we've tried to do in our messaging, but it's been very, very hard, is to convey that we provide a different level of service to our customers than saying Expedia or Priceline or others do. And we've invested a lot in the service behind the website, so that if you run into trouble, and often you do, and you have a misconnecting flight, you have a problem with your hotel, whatever it may be, that you can, either through the website, but also on the phone, you can solve your problem, and we'll solve those problems for you when, in many cases, you call online travel agencies, except for Travelocity, you'll find that you don't get much help. And so we've invested a lot in the service behind the brand, and we've tried to differentiate in that way. Now, at the end of the day, it's been very, very difficult, and as you think about it, as we were experimenting with different bits of advertising, and we were watching our competitors who would sometimes do these big Super Bowl ads, and it's been a couple $1 million on a 30-second spot, and we'd sit back and look at that and think, man, it's a lot of money to spend on the Super Bowl and on a spot like that. And the thing that was interesting about it, and I guess in some respects both good for us, but also a little disappointing in terms of the differentiation, is that Expedia would go run some big ad, or Priceline would run some big ad, and on Monday after the game, people would come up to me and say, your ad on the Super Bowl was awesome. The Travelocity ad was awesome. Well, we didn't do an ad. Expedia did, Priceline did. And so what we found is that in some respects, that advertising was good for all of us, because they didn't differentiate. It didn't really differentiate. We weren't differentiating well in our messaging. The bad news is that they don't really, in many respects, I think this audience wouldn't believe there are a lot of differences. So you do your best to break out with your advertising and your messaging, but it's really difficult. Really difficult when there are a lot of similarities between the sites.
Well, I think it's difficult for most of us to see the shades of gray unless we really dig deep to figure out what those service benefits are. And I think a lot of times, too, you don't really understand them or appreciate them until you have a problem and you have to have something fixed. I'm guessing that most students are probably shopping, they're price conscious, and probably if you ask them where they get their airline ticket, what role does service play in their selection, I'm going to bet it's somewhere down the hierarchy.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to be about price and availability, and but I think even for, if you will, those of us that might be less price sensitive, it's probably a hard message to get across service, isn't it?
It is, and everyone, you, me, everybody in this room is price sensitive, and what we find is that you will take a connecting flight if it'll save you $5. That's what we see as we look at booking trends on our website.
Really, $5?
$5. $5 we'll see our customers take a connecting flight versus a nonstop. Okay, it seems to me, well, I'm price sensitive enough, I wouldn't take the connecting flight. I'd go with a nonstop. But it's a very price sensitive group that are shopping online for tickets, and it doesn't matter what your demographic is, everybody's looking for the best deal. And in many, many cases, you're willing to take a lot of inconvenience in order to get $5, $7, $10 of improvement in your price. It's amazing, but that's our customer.
Okay. Well, do you want to show us some ads and tell us a little bit about the campaign and how you do it?
Sure. I will cut it short here. It is really important for our team, for our employees, that they have the opportunity to help out in the communities that they live and that they work in, and we have lots of programs around the world to help those that are in need. And it really has been an important part of the culture of the company, and it's become very important as we are competing for talent around the world and trying to attract the types of people that we have in this room here to our company, that we have to have these types of programs where we're doing not only well as a company, but doing good for those people around us.
How many people are you now?
About 11,000 people. These are the 4 businesses that I talked about before. I'm not going to talk about them in much detail, and let's get right to Travelocity and the Roaming Gnome. The genesis of the Roaming Gnome was a movie. Who knows the name of the movie that that focused on a gnome that traveled around the world? Anybody know?
That would be a trivia question for me.
That could be a trivia question. You get it right. You get it right, and well, there you go. You, my friend. This is for you.
Come get your gnome. Please come take your gnome.
Yeah. So we based it on Homily. The advertising agency that we were working with had given us a bunch of different ideas, but we arrived at this one, and I'll talk a little bit about why in a moment. By the way, a little bit of trivia on that gnome. It is an Elvis gnome. We have been selling them on our website, and they've been going like we've been selling a lot of them. And then we got a letter from the estate of Elvis, and they said, we don't like you selling Elvis gnomes, please stop. And so we did. So what you have there is a collector's item, my friend. We're not selling it anymore. And don't sell it on eBay, okay? So we started in the early days with this idea of the gnome, and the gnome that had been nabbed and stolen. So this idea of a roam that's taken out of the garden and travels around the world, which again is back to the theme of Homily. So I guess the question for the group would be, why would we have chosen an inanimate object to be the Travelocity spokesperson? Any views on why we would do something like that, as opposed to just getting some celebrity to be our spokesperson? Anybody have a view? Cheap. Cheap is good. Cheap is good. So that's one reason. Why else?
Ageless.
I'm sorry?
Ageless. Like
Ageless. Yeah, certainly ageless. That's true. What else? Maybe there's some examples of celebrity spokespeople here recently that might give you a clue.
You can't mess up.
I'm sorry?
You can't mess up.
They can't mess up. I mean, you think about Tiger Woods, and back in the day, I can't remember who the celebrity was that was getting in trouble at that point. But our advertising agency, and I really was focused on getting a real person to be our spokesperson. But they had advised, you know what, the roaming gnome probably won't have a drug problem. We probably won't find them doing anything that you'd be embarrassed by. And so at the end of the day, we decided to go with the roaming gnome. So let me give you a view of some of the early ads, and these go back to 2006, and you'll see a theme here, and it comes back to some of our attempts with a lot of messaging over the years to get the service differentiation.
By the way, before you go, so on that point,
yeah.
Since your technology is running Priceline site, who is a competitor, since your technology is driving Kayak's online experience, who is at least at times a competitor, how do you differentiate? So many of the people that you're selling against, you're also selling to. So how sensitive do you have to be to the CEO call from a Priceline when, after all, I mean, it's war and you're supposed to go head to head, but at the same time you're doing business with it?
Well, I'm pretty sensitive. They're a big customer, so when they call, we'll listen, and we try not to step on their toes too often. We thought it was important to get our message out in this case around this new product offering. So we press pretty hard with this advertising messaging. But there are times when we just say, well, it's probably not worth it to be poking at them too much. And in this case, we decided to stop running the ads.
Does that in any way encumber the Travelocity? I mean, being a part of Sabre, does that make Travelocity to some degree go to the market with one hand tied behind their back in terms of how they fight because of these issues?
There are certainly challenges for them associated with that. Although we really do try to put I guess you could put kind of a Chinese wall up so that people can do what they need to do. And this is really an example they went off and were doing what they felt was important to promote their business. So we really try to give them a lot of autonomy within the larger set of businesses to do what they need to do and compete as they need to compete. All right, so in 2012, the CEO who came in new into the job decided that we needed to go back to our roots after having done some product advertising. And so you'll see here examples of that.
Oh, I just feel bloody awful. She told Tiffany, Stephanie, Jenny and Becky that she was coming to a place like this. But somebody didn't book with Travelocity, with 24/7 customers falling in and move them to the pool Daddy promised. Please, somebody get her a pony.
The Travelocity guarantee. If your booking's not right, we'll help make it right away. From the price to the room to the trip, you'll never walk alone.
So here's the question I was going to ask, which is around the service differentiation that we've been really trying to press out into the market. So that's Travelocity. I think I now move on to lastminute.com, which is a company that we acquired about 7 or 8 years ago. Now you're going to find, Mark was talking about this a little bit earlier, these ads are a little more on the what you might call racy side, and certainly in the UK, they were received very, very well. Lastminute.com built a brand on really on this type of premise, putting out very edgy ads and some fairly gender-specific ads, and you'll see examples of them as we go through here.
Well, you should point out Oh, you haven't seen anything yet. Explain to everybody how you got lastminute.com. So it's like a Travelocity in Europe, and you guys bought it a few years ago.
Yeah.
So you acquired this company so that you had a presence in Europe.
So that we had a stronger presence in Europe, and they have a very big brand in Europe. They focused on everything last minute, but travel had been a core part of their offering. And so they were set. They sell. They sell restaurant reservations. They sell theater tickets. They sell really everything oriented toward the last minute. Travel is a big part of it. And again, they had really built their brand on this type of edgy messaging, and you'll see more of it here. These, and again, all these types of ads running in the tube stations in London, I'll point out the one there on the right-hand side. I was over there with my family. My kids were probably 9 or 10 years old, and they saw the one there on the right-hand side. And they said, "Dad, what does that mean, Brazilian or Hollywood?" And I said, "I think you're going to have to ask your mom." And for those of you that don't know, what it means, I'm not going to explain it. You should probably ask your mom. So a very edgy set of messaging. Same thing in our email campaigns. And you see, there's a lot of gibberish there, but you see some of the messaging that's being used there, right there underneath the photographs.
And it is worth mentioning that what we would consider very risque here, in many instances, is very commonplace in the UK. This is
very much. This is.
I don't know if we have any expats or anybody here from the UK, but you know that our advertising is very conservative relative to what you grew up with.
I mean, these types of things wouldn't go over very well in Iowa. So, so more recently, so that gives you a sense for some of the things that we've done. I'll show you one more ad here in a minute, TV ad that we did for lastminute.com. More recently, we don't have time for this, so I'm going to skip through these. More recently, we had another campaign around no nabbing, and I'll skip through the promotional campaign that we had going along with it. We were on Jimmy Kimmel. We had a remote control gnome. I'll show you this. I know we need to get out of here, Mark.
Okay, so it's very interesting that the gnome has survived all of these years. One of the things I found most interesting is you talk about how what you really have to compete on with the vast majority of your customers is really all about price.
Yeah.
Yet the vast majority of your messaging is completely trying to stay away from price, except in the event you might mention 45% off or best rates. But really, you play in a world where the primary driver between purchase decisions is something you have to stay away from because I guess it is just so commoditized, right?
Everybody presumes that you're competing on price, and so you have to try, you have to do your best to differentiate on something else. Now we do a lot of price promotions, and we talk about tools that we make available on the website or on a mobile device that will help you find the lowest price. So, there's a lot in these ads about deals, but we've tried over a long period of time to differentiate based on the service.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about mobile, because mobile's changing. Like I've downloaded the Travelocity app, and it's got some pretty cool features. I've tried the kayak too. They're not quite there yet. They're not quite elegant enough to actually do real travel planning. But what's the purpose? When would I use a mobile app for travel planning? Is it an emergency?
Well, I think if it's the app that you go to on the web, on your desktop, you're likely going to use it on your mobile as well. Although we have apps like we have a lastminute.com hotel deals app that you can download that is focused on that last minute purchase. You're in a city, you need a hotel, and it's a really helpful, easy way to book a hotel. So we've focused on what can we do to make it easy during the experience, during your travel experience. What can we do to make it easy? A lot of the apps that we're building, both across Sabre and also with Travelocity, around what we can do right there, location aware. What can we do to help you where you're at? If you're in a pinch, you need a hotel or whatever it may be.
Okay. Should our students go to Travelocity as opposed to competitors for better price still? If it's not service buyer, it's price buyer, right?
Of course, if you're price oriented, definitely go to Travelocity. We have a great deal. If you're service oriented, we're the only place to go.
Okay. Unless, of course, Priceline calls you and tells you to quit saying that, then you have to use the Sabre.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so listen, tell me a little bit of this, because I'd be remiss. You have 25 years in the business of marketing technology, which is sort of the mantra of this class. What words of wisdom would you have for graduating seniors who are going out into the world today looking to be somehow in this sector, to function in a marketing or advertising capacity, and particularly as it relates to new media or technology?
Well, I think first of all, if you can find the secret sauce as it relates to media and advertising and mobile, you're gonna have a job just about anywhere you go. I think the real challenge we've all had with mobile is that there's a huge amount of shopping that's going on. There isn't much media to be sold as yet. None of us have really figured out how to sell our inventory of media and advertising that we'd like to on mobile devices, and that's true of everybody. So Facebook is having that challenge. Really, every large online player is having that challenge in mobile. And if you can figure that out, you'll win the day. I think then, I guess, any other advice, you really ought to, if you want to get into digital marketing, you really need to understand search engine marketing, search engine optimization. You really ought to study that and understand it well. But again, some of what we know very well in SEO and SEM, those two major topics, is getting blown away by what we need to now learn about mobile and how we sell our products and services and market them on mobile devices.
Okay. Will you do me a favor and stick around? I want not only the people that wrote essays to go meet you, but anybody else, because it's a good group that likes to network, and you're still hiring people, right?
We have 700 open positions.
Not
all in marketing, but we do have quite a few open positions right now.
Okay, very good.
Great to spend time with you all.